Okay, well, welcome back to QuickBooks. Now we're moving on to, I would say this is also one of the most important chapters just because this is how we set up items, okay? And items is very important, especially when you have a product or service and your intentions is to sell it to your customers. So you need to build your items and be able to purchase them through inventory in order for you to get those items that you need for you to sell to your customers. So I would say this is an important chapter, okay? Because it does connect with a lot of things that you need to do, such as getting a supplier, and then on top of that, making sure you understand how to record sales using items. Okay. So again, here's a few topics that we're going to be looking at here today. And on top of that, if you're going to be following along with me in the book, you need to be opening up. You should have open Inventory 21 portable file. Okay. So let's get started and talk about QuickBooks items. Okay. So what are QuickBooks items? So as I've mentioned before, right? QuickBooks items is essentially another breakdown of sales, right? It contains, for example, if you sell a product, it will list that on there. If you sell a service or provide a service, right, you can also list that under your items as well. You can do, so if you remember chapter 3, you could use items to charge sales tax. We took a look in chapter 3 as well to do how to create another charge to create the bad debt. And we didn't get to take a look at discounts, but we didn't look at how we create the discount, but it is also one of the things that is a QuickBooks item, okay? So all of these things I'm talking to you about right now are all in regards to the sales process. So think of anything that you can think of that is in the realms of selling a product or service, right? What are the things? Tax, right? Discounts, shipping, all of that are all going to be something that you could create as an item, okay? So that's what they are. Now, how do I get to this list of items? Okay, first off, let's go ahead and talk about what these items are and why are they in a list and how do you use them. Well, here you go down the bottom of this page here. It gives you a list of all of the different types of items. So this is very, very, very important because you will get tested on which item is what and when do you use it and how do you use it, okay? And we'll even go over some few examples here, okay? So we can kind of understand what they are. But first, let's talk about how do I get to those items list, okay? 2 ways. Well, you could go 3 if you really are counting. The first way is going to be right here on your home page, right? You have this section under your home and it says, or your company, and it says right here, items and service. So if I click on that, this is the list I'm talking about, okay? There's also another way that you could be able to get that, right? You could go to list itself at the top of the window. List, right here, items list. Okay, and the second way would be going through the vendors and then going through the inventory activities, and you'd be able to go to the items list create a new item. But you're also able to access the inventory center, which you get to see all your products and services there as well. But in this case, that's to create a new item, not necessarily get to the item list. So there's literally only maybe 2 ways that you can do that, and then you could see an overall one through the inventory center, okay? But primarily ways to get there is through list or the home page through the items and services. So let's go back to the book real quick. So there are about 10 items. Ooh, sorry, 9, 10. Shh. So there is about 11 items that you can choose to be able to create things for your for your company to either sell. For example, here the first one that you see here is a service. So if you do provide a service, that's the first item that you can create. Now we've seen what services can do, right? Services is in terms of when you know, when you provide something that is in regards to time, okay? So because it's time related, right? Usually services are non-taxable, okay? But if you do provide a service, you would obviously just use that one. So that one's a pretty straightforward item. Okay? Next is going to be determining an inventory part versus a non-inventory part. Now in this case, right, when we talk about inventory parts and non-inventory parts, those are going to be the products that you sell. Now, if you understand some slight terminology, right, it's very similar to periodic and perpetual inventory, okay? Periodic inventory is where we sometimes check here and there every once in a while our inventory. We update it every once in a while. Where perpetual, we're constantly updating our inventory all the time. So every time we purchase something, every time we sell something, it's always going to be constantly updated. Now, I'm talking about that in terms of items because they kind of function a little bit similar, okay? Your inventory parts are going to be the ones that you actually sell most often, and you want to keep a really close count on it, okay? Where your non-inventory parts are going to be things that you don't necessarily sell as often, and these ones you don't really care to really check the inventory status, stock status on it, like how many items you have left, because it's just an item that's you purchase and it might not sell right away. So that's how you could describe the difference on how you can initiate which one am I going to be using. Is it something that I'm going to sell the most often and I want to keep a good track record of it? Then use inventory part. But if I want to, if I have an item that I don't sell very often and I don't really care to keep track of it, use a non-inventory part. Okay. One that we'll be learning here today is going to be called inventory assemblies. Inventory assemblies is when you create the product yourself and sell it. So again, a great example is a bakery store, right? You don't sell the eggs, flour, and sugar separately. You combine them together to create a new product, okay? And we use inventory assemblies for that. Now, of course, what you have to do is you got to do an inventory part, such as your eggs, an inventory part for your flours, and then what you do is you combine them together in measurements, right, to see how you'd be able to create the product out from there, okay? So that's called inventory assemblies. Next one's going to be other charges, which we took a look at, right? It's where we have things like charging for freight. In this case, we use it for bad debt, right? We have subtotal. Okay, so we know what that is. It's a calculating item that gives you a grand total of all the items that are listed. So that's that. Group item. Group item we'll talk about too, because there's a huge difference between just combining our inventory parts and creating a new product. This one is where you're making a bundle package. So we'll talk more about that further down in the chapter. All right. We also have things like discounts. So I mentioned before, right? It's a calculating item where you can, if you have a store-wide discount, you just apply that discount and it starts subtracting off of your invoice and things like that. You have a payment item. So I've mentioned this before. Why is it that when we made customer deposits, we just didn't use payments? Now, in this case, payments could be Again, something you can use, especially if, for instance, you finance a charge, right? And you have someone who makes payments all the time. That could be used right here. But in this case, I don't know why they didn't, for the example for the customer payment, they didn't use payments. They use another or service instead. It just really depends, but yes, you can use these payments to go towards a bill or an invoice if you need it to. Okay, and sales tax item and a sales tax group item, which we already covered in chapter 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our items and start creating our couple items with a few examples of what you can do out of those 11 different items. So here again, we see the items list. Again, it's very straightforward, standard. Once you've done one, you can do all of them, right? So in this case, this is a form of a list, and down at the bottom, you have the items, which will bring you a drop up list, which you can go ahead and create a new item, or you can right click anywhere on the page and be able to create a new item that way. So once again, here I am. Here's the list of all the 11 different items that I can choose from to be able to create an item. So the first one we're going to take a look here today is we are going to go ahead and create a service item first, okay? So service item. So that's the first one. How do we fill it out? Well, what am I going to name this item? So let's take a look. We're going to name this service item photo session. Okay? Photo session. Okay? And then this kind of item, right, is a service item. So obviously it's not going to get taxed. You're going to have it considered a non-taxable item, which we, in this class, right, which is sales tax code, which we call that a sales tax code for a non-taxable item, right? Well, down below, let's see, what kind of description would you have here? You could do 1 hour photo session, okay? What's the rate on it? Now, this is where if you put a number in here, right, the rate is in terms of dollar, not a percentage, right? So basically, it's asking you how much is it for one quantity of this item, okay? And that's what this rate means, is how much is it going to cost you for every photo session, okay? So in this case, we normally charge $95, okay? Now, if you set the price here in this window, that means every time you use this item on a sales form, it will populate all the information for you, and that's how it makes it that much more quicker to be able to process all, process your orders or process your invoices a lot quicker because, again, we've mentioned this before, it is a data collecting type of software, right? The more information you put in here, the quicker and easier QuickBooks will make it easier for you to be able to enter in a transaction a lot quicker, okay? So again, we charge $95 per photo session, and we just said it's a non-taxable item. We call this service, and what account is this linked to? This is going to be linked to the service account. Now notice this. Why is it that my items must be linked to my accounts? Okay? This is so that when you use these items, right, it's making an association, a relationship between the different accounts. So instead of, for example, your chart of accounts, instead of cluttering it with services, sales, and so on and so forth, right, instead of listing them out there, you can just link them all to here to make an association that this is part of sales, this is part of service, this is part of that, okay? But also, this is how QuickBooks knows what to do for the accounting behind the scenes, because I'm linking this service item to a service account. That means every time I use it, I increase my services. Okay? So once that everything looks good, then you can go and click OK. And that is easy, right? I'm just building up my list of items that I have and that I do sell, and then we'll see how you're able to apply it through an invoice, right? Which we've already been doing. Okay? So that was the very first one, see? So if you can do one, you can pretty much do all of them, okay? So that was a service item, okay? Next is going to be, we're going to create a non-inventory item. So I've already mentioned to you guys what the difference is between a non-inventory item and an inventory item, okay? It's just depending on what product you sell, right? Do you keep track of it? Do you sell it very often? Now in this case, so let's go ahead and practice creating a non-inventory part, okay? So let's see what's the difference between that and a service item. Well, here you go. I'm going to select non-inventory part. Now notice this, right? The only difference I see here is I am going to be having a rate, but let's see. But for the non-inventory part, because I'm not using anything else to keep track of it, then I don't necessarily want to keep track of it in regards to cost of goods sold or my revenue. So in this case, when I do an non-inventory part, the only thing I am associating is just my sales or my inventory items. Okay. Now, if this belongs to a part of an assembly item, then it will expand definitely 100%. But in this case, I'm just doing a regular non-inventory part item. And what is this? This is going to be a custom photo package. Okay? Because in this case, right, if it's a customizable photo package, right, we don't know what the customer's going to want. This doesn't, not many customers are going to buy this custom photo package, okay? And what is this? It is a customizable photo package, right? Not many people would choose this because, again, they get to build their own package where there's a bunch of packets that we have, such as a standard photo package, a premium photo package that includes X, Y, and Z. But this one, again, it's an item that we don't necessarily sell all the time because not everybody's going to want a customizable photo package. So that's why we don't really necessarily keep track of it, because there's no means to if we don't really sell it. So here, what is the rate on my photo package? Well, let's see here. The rate for the photo package is going to be $0 because we don't know what the customer wants. So what does it mean if I leave this blank? That means if I use this item on a sales form, I would actually have to see what this custom photo package is entailing. What are the items that they're requesting from me? Because if it's a customizable package, right, it's going to depend on how many items they buy and what their price points are, right? So that's the difficult part here. So that means when I actually know and calculate all of them, that's where I'm going to go ahead and manually enter in how much that custom photo package is on the actual sales form itself. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to leave it at 0. Okay, right here, it's going to be taxable, obviously, because it's a product that I sell. And then, of course, last but not least, I need to also put in the account for sales because it's a product that I sell. So this belongs to my sales. Okay. And I can go ahead and click OK. All right. So again, easy, straightforward, very simple. Okay. Your book is going to show you what another charge is. So if you want to do shipping, you can put a shipping rate in there. So let's go ahead and see what happens if I do a shipping. Okay. So shipping is going to be considered an other charge. It could be a service, right? It just depends on how you're going to treat it, right? Do you provide a delivery service? If you do, then that's going to be considered a service that is included as part of something that you can buy. But if this is just a separate shipping charge, then you want to do it as an other charge, right? If you don't have an actual delivery service itself, then mark it as an other charge. Okay? So there you go, other charge. Okay? Now, what is this? I'm going to say shipping. Shipping. So what is this? This could be for shipping and handling. Usually they are together. Cost. What's the rate? So in this case, you can have a rate. And it says in amount of percentage. Okay. Well, in this case, the rate could be $8.95. Okay. Is it taxable? No. Shipping is usually never taxable. Okay, so in this case, you would have it as a service item just because, again, shipping is usually it's labor as well, right? You wouldn't necessarily charge tax on shipping. Okay. And then, of course, what account would this be? Well, if you have a actual shipping account, then go ahead and plug it in there. But if you don't, then you're going to just put this as a service account, as part of service, right? So again, you can choose how you want to do it. If you charge people for the shipping, then that's going to be obviously a separate charge. But if you actually do delivery services itself, then it'd be considered a service. So there you go. Right? And I can click OK. So there you go. Very straightforward. I just did 3 items for you guys. Again, a lot of these items, once you get the hang of it, you build one, you're able to build multiple of them. Okay? All right. So let's actually do one last item, okay? One last item that we will be looking further in the chapter for. But in this case, I'm going to save some time because I'm already in the section where I'm creating items. So might as well, let's go ahead and create another item. So for instance, let's actually do an actual inventory item. So then again, you could see how different it is compared to the rest of the items. So again, inventory item that I'm going to do is going to be an inventory part. Now, once I click on that, right, now it's expansive, right? We have a cost of goods sold section, we have the inventory section, and we have the sales section, okay? Because, again, we actually call these two-sided items where it links to multiple accounts, okay? So in this case, when I utilize this inventory part, this part allows me to make purchases of inventory, so that's down below. But every time I sell it, right, I'm generating income, right? But because I have to do that and I'm keeping track of it, I also have to calculate how much it costs me to sell those items. So in this case, that is what the linkage and relationship is between the 3, right? And you can use this as both a means to purchase your items, or you can use it to sell your items, okay? So in this case, right, this item, I'm going to call this frame 5x7 wood. Okay? So in this case, I have some wooden picture frame. So I could say 5x7 wooden picture frame. Okay? And let's see what's in there. Okay, so again, let's see. Is this a part? Okay, so there it is, a 5x7. And then let's see. Let's sew. How much did it cost me? It's gonna cost me $5 for the wooden frame. Now, what is this cost coming from? Again, this is also going to allow you to use this for purchasing your inventory, right? This is how much it's gonna cost you. All right, and again, it's already selected that the account that I'm linking this to is a cost of goods sold. Do I have a preferred vendor that I always buy my picture frames from? If you do, type it in. So that means every time you use this vendor for a purchase order, it's going to automatically populate that you must be buying these items from them. Okay? Now we move on to the right side for sales. For sales, right? How much do I sell my picture frames to my customers? In this case, I actually charge $9.99, right? And because it's taxable, because it's an actual product, it is taxable. And what is this going to be collected as? Sales. Okay? Now take a look at this. I'm charging my customers almost $10 when it cost me only $5. That right there is almost a 100% profit because it cost me $5 for one picture frame, but I'm charging and benefiting and getting a gain of $4.99 profit. Again, that's almost 100% profit right there. Okay? And that's what a lot of companies do. They're not looking to break even because, again, their cost for expenses such as I need to pay for rent. Is my items that I'm selling enough to cover for my rent expense? Is it enough to cover my insurance? There's a lot of other expenses that come into a business that you need to make sure that you generate enough income, right? So in this case, you're going to have to figure out what kind of profit margin you want, all right? Again, we don't have time to discuss that, but that's what we have here. We have 100%, almost 100% profit margin here where we're going to gain $4.99 each for every picture frame that we sell, and it's going to be taxable. Okay? Then the last one is going to be at the very bottom here is where am I going to associate when I make purchases of inventory? Well, it already is under inventory asset. Okay? It's already there. Now, this one says, how many items do you want to let QuickBooks know to warn you that you need to reorder? So this is what I was talking about earlier about how if you don't have it for that instance where you have to use a sales order to purchase something to back order an item that you don't have necessarily enough stock for, this is where you can have QuickBooks notify you as soon as your inventory drops a certain amount, right? QuickBooks can notify you so that you can go ahead and make those purchases without having to go through a sales order. Okay? Unless a customer decides to buy in bulk and say, hey, I want to buy 100 of those items from you, right? And you only have 50 items, then yes, that will be the appropriate reason why you have to go have a sales order to order those extra 50 items just so that you can fulfill that order, right? But in most cases, right, this kind of situation, I'm allowing QuickBooks to let me know if my value drops below a certain amount, remind me to make a purchase of inventory. Okay? Now again, so how much do I want to have minimum? I believe we said 5. Okay, maximum, actually no, let's do 20. Minimum 20. Maximum, it doesn't matter. We don't need to have a maximum. And this is where you should not ever do, okay? Never fill out this section here where you have on hand and what's the total value, okay? Your better bet to do this is where you're going to be either back ordering your purchase orders or you actually know how much inventory you have on hand and you're going to be able to calculate it through here, then you can go ahead and do that. But in this case, they do recommend you do not fill in any account balances unless stated wise. And I'm going to show you today also how to adjust your inventory in case things do happen and your values do not match. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to leave this section blank because, again, if you have inventory, you can put it in here, but again, it's best bet if you just properly just use the purchase orders and then be able to fill it in there instead of manually put it in here this way. Okay? And I'll click OK. So that's the difference between doing a service item, a non-inventory part, a other charge, and an inventory part, right? You notice it was very different, right? The inventory part had more accounts that was linked to this particular account. And we can use an inventory part to do 2 things. Make purchases of inventory, which is going through a vendor, and then also selling that product. So we call that a 2-sided item, right? Any questions in regards to items? Yes.
I wasn't quite sure when we built the other charge item, the percentage of 8.95.
In this case, that it just says that, but again, you can override that through the when you on the sales form, because it is that you're right there, but it's because it's really weird because you would never charge freight based on a percentage. Okay, that's why I said it depends on how you view the item. I would have had it as a service rather than an other charge.
Okay.
Right? An other charge would be handling or other charge would be expedited fees, right?
Yeah.
Things that you would normally not have. But I would, in this case, I would have shipping be a service item.
Okay.
But that just depends on how your company views it, right? Is delivery something that you provide to your customers? Do you deliver those products? And it's a service that's part of your plan. But if it's not, then you would use it as an other charge. But in this case, yes, I saw it too. You can always override that on the sales form if it doesn't make sense. But yes, for that kind of instance, it's a percentage, which shipping and handling, it's never a percentage, right? It's based on weight.
Yeah.
So in that case, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. But the only thing you can do is, again, you're able to override it on the actual sales form.
Okay.
Okay? So we just talked about that. So if I were to go ahead and create a sales form, right? Notice how we look at the sales form. You have your quantity, you have your items. Notice it says items. So if I go ahead and click that drop down menu, right? These are all the items that you listed on that items list. Okay? Sales is only in regards to items. Okay? You won't ever see an account. Now, when we dive into chapter 14, okay, you'll understand why is there a huge difference between accounts and items. Now, in this case, right, these items are linked to accounts, but they are not the accounts themselves. Because again, when I sell a product, right, I can sell blue hats, white hats, brown hats, black hats, right? They all are going to go into one area, but at the end of the day, the difference is that I'm expanding my sales account by saying I sell these items. Okay, and that's exactly what you're doing here. Is that's how you be able to utilize. So again, we just did the frame 5x7 wood. Once I click on that, then it populates everything. It even populates that I'm charged by customer $9.99. Okay. All right. Now it says again, you don't have sufficient. So this is what I was talking about. When you set up those parameters to have a reorder point, QuickBooks just reminded me saying, hey, wait, you don't even have enough to sell anything. So you don't have any available on hand. So you have to go make a purchase and order them. Okay, so that's what I was talking about earlier in regards to that. Okay, so again, I'm going to close this. No, I don't want to save it. Okay. All right. So any questions in regards to items? No? Okay. Let's talk about let's just talk about inventory, okay? So when we're talking about inventory, we are talking about this top section on your home page, okay? This part right here where you make a purchase order, then you're going to receive the items, and then you're going to either enter the bill against those items, okay? And then eventually you have to pay those bills, okay? Now, if you have Premier Enterprise and Accounting, you have access to an inventory center, okay? QuickBooks Pro does not allow you to have an inventory center. So check it out over here. If I go to my company section on my homepage under inventory activities, I am able to access the inventory center this way, okay? So let's check out what the inventory center looks like. It looks like this. So again, it will list out all the products that you sell. So again, for your inventory, right? Because that's making purchases in inventory, right? You don't buy services. You don't purchase services, okay? Services are usually something that you just provide by having someone do some kind of labor work. In this case, these are products that you purchase from somebody and you call this inventory. So it has both inventory parts, okay? And it also, so you got a camera, you got a case, you got your frames, and you have your lenses, right? These are all products that you sell. And if you actually click on each and every single one, it will tell you how many items you have on stock, how many items you have on hand, what's the total value of them. So this is the inventory center, and you're actually able to enter in new items and things like that. Remember, this is only products that you sell, okay? Non-inventory products do not resonate here, or they can, I believe. So for example, if you have a custom photo package, right, what's in there? Okay, if it's products that you can purchase, if it's a combination between a service and a product, then that would be something else. But notice says I don't have any premium photo package, standard photo package, or anything like that. But again, my items list could be very expansive, and I might not have all the items or the account balances in there, right? Because you can buy photo paper, right? You can order photographers. But in this case, these are just the standard items that you utilize as inventory, that you want to keep track of the items that you have available on hand, okay? So that's the inventory center. You can go through that by going through the home page, or you can go to the vendor's menu, okay? vendor's menu, inventory activities, and you'll be able to enter in the inventory center that way as well. Okay? Only 2 ways. All right, so that's how we keep track of inventory. Well, how do I actually use inventory? Okay? How do I use my inventory? Well, or how do I make purchases of inventory? So once again, best rule of thumb is you should kind of go in this little flow of functions, right? I have to submit a purchase order, and then eventually I will end up receiving that order. And then what happens when you receive those orders is it starts to automatically update your inventory. Okay. Now that's not the only option you have to do, because what if you go to the actual store and purchase inventory that way? Yes, I'll show you both ways that you can be able to do that, because you also can make purchases of inventory on the go as well, or go to this actual store and purchase it. And by using the items, right, and paying for them, it would automatically put it into your inventory. Okay, so let's go ahead and first talk about how I need to be able to purchase this. Okay, so the first one is, let's talk about using the write a checks window to purchase inventory. Okay, so I am going to write a check. Okay, and let's say I am purchasing something from Wong and Son. Okay, now notice this, at the bottom of the form you have expenses and then you have items. Okay, your expenses are going to be anything that is in an account, right? In this case, I cannot be able to enter in anything in regards to items that I'm purchasing for my inventory, because they are not expenses. They are not accounts. I would actually have to click on the tab for items to be able to switch over to be able to purchase those items. Okay? So from Wong and Son, this is what I bought from them. I purchased 5 camera lenses for the Walnut Creek location. Okay, so lenses, right? I type in lens and there it is. I purchased 5 of them. Okay, and it cost me only $184.95, right? But I can upcharge that when I sell it to my customers. Okay, and what store am I buying this for? I'm buying this for the Walnut Creek location. Okay, and when did I buy this? In this case, I'm going to make print later. And I'm going to buy this as of April 7. Okay, so that's the grand total, right? And of course, you can put your memo that you purchased 5 camera lens. Okay. Once everything looks good and you use a check to pay for it, right? Again, I have it saved to be printed later. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Okay. Now, in this case, right, how do I know how many items I just purchased, right? Because I ordered, or in this case, I just purchased 5 of them, right? How do I see that stock status? Well, again, you could go through your inventory center to do that, to be able to take a look at that. But what if I want to look at all of them at once? Okay, without having to click one at a time. Well, you can actually run a report. Okay, so if I go to reports and I click items and inventory, or inventory, I can go ahead and do a inventory stock status by item. So if I click on that, this is what's going to tell me. It's going to tell me, well, your camera lenses, you just bought 5 of them, right? So right now the reorder point's 20 of that, or sorry, you don't have a reorder point. However, you or have 5 on hand. So everything else, I have nothing in every other category. I have nothing on hand for any of them. So that means I gotta make a lot of purchases of my inventory, so then I can have them readily available on hand. Okay. So in this case, that's exactly what it says here. Right now, I have 0. So if I go ahead and make a purchase order, right, and the minute I receive those inventory items, eventually this number will change. So again, we just bought lenses from Wong & Son. There you go. That's how you can see what happens when you actually use the items tab on if you make a purchase of something, or if you use it on a sales form, it's going to get rid of it. Okay, so that is this right here. Okay. Okay, so that's how you use a ready checks and say you just went to the store and you paid for the items that you're planning to use for inventory. That's one way of doing it. Now, another way that you could do it, and it is a proper way to do it, is you're better off to make a purchase order, okay? Because then you don't have to go to the store and have to make the purchase of the inventory items, right? You just send out a purchase order, have them ship those items to you, and then you can go ahead and do what you got to do, right? Wait for the items to get shipped to you, receive the items, and you should also be receiving a bill along with it. So let's take a look at our purchase order. Okay? Purchase orders, you're able to do this the same exact 6 different ways that you can enter in a bill. Okay? Whether it's on the home page, the icon bar to get to the vendor center, or you could go the menu, the vendor's menu, or go to the vendor center itself and be able to do all 3 transactions, as well as the bill tracker, right? You're able to do all 6 ways to be able to enter in a purchase order at any given time. So I'm going to go ahead and just do it right here on my home page. And this is what the window looks like. Purchase order, okay? So let's take a look at what I am going to be ordering, because right now I have 0 in every single account, right? All I have is 5 lenses right now. Okay? So let me see what I have to do. Okay? I'm going to be ordering items. Okay, so let's see. Purchase order, we're going to go ahead and say, who are you purchasing from? We are going to contact Ace Supply so we can purchase all of those picture frames, okay? Now, in this case, is it specified for the San Jose or the Walnut Creek location? It's up to you what you decide to do. So in this case, I don't have to have it if it's unnecessary. If I'm purchasing it for a particular store, then by all means. But if not, then I'm not going to do that, okay? So here it tells me that I need to order this amount. I'm going to be ordering, let's see, so items. So if I type in 5x7, right, boom, I have wooden and metal. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do metal first, okay? Now, wood first. Now notice this. See, when I put that in there, all the items fill in, and it even filled in the cost for me, right? I am going to purchase 40 of these items, okay? Quantity 40. So that means it should give me a grand total of $200, right? Let's see what the date I am going to be purchasing this on. So purchase order Ace Supply, okay, for April 7, okay. Purchase order number, it doesn't matter what number you use here because this is your reference number, but let's just say it's 2022-1, right? Best way to do it is associate the year and what number order this is, okay? So I'm going to order 40 of those wooden picture frames, and I'm also going to order 20 of these metal frames, okay? So again, the metal frames obviously significantly cheaper, right? It costs $2.15 for each one, and I'm going to order 20 of them. So there you go, boom. Now, this is what I'm going to order. Do I have anything I want to say to the vendor? No. Okay, memo. Purchase 40 wooden frames and 20 metal frames. Okay? And once everything looks good, you got the ship to place, so it's going to ship this purchase order over onto Ace Supply, and they're going to submit this order, and they're going to send us the items. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Okay? So now, again, a purchase order will not affect my inventory stock status because all I did was simply request that I am buying items, okay? So let's take a look at this. Inventory stock status by items. In this case, right, it did not affect any of them because all I did was simply order. I did not receive. I did not receive the items, so I don't actually have the items. So I can't update my inventory if I don't have the items. I didn't receive a bill, which lets me know that I owe this vendor money. All I did was a simple purchase order. We call that a non-posting transaction. Purchase orders is 100% very similar to sales orders and estimates, right? They don't affect any accounts because it's just a simple order. There's no transaction at hand when with this items, right? So in this case, that is the reason why my inventory stock status has not changed when I submitted a purchase order. Okay? So then, right, now that we submitted a purchase order, okay, so let's follow that line across, right? We have received items. Now, if you look very carefully, there's this little drop-down triangle, okay? You have two options. You are either gonna, one, receive the items with the bill, or two, you're gonna receive an items without a bill, okay? This is very common when it comes to a lot of companies, especially when you order from them, if they are also backed up in stock, right? Oftentimes, what they're gonna do is they're gonna ship you whatever they have on their end. They're gonna back order for them, and as soon as they get the next part, the batch of inventory, they're gonna go ahead and forward you for whatever missing amount that you, the items that you didn't have, right? We call this packaging slips. So they will send you boxes, and instead of sending you a bill, they're gonna send you shipment 1 of 1, or shipment 1 of 2, or shipment 1 of 5, saying that in this box, you received X amount of items out of all the X amount that you ordered, okay? And that's very important, especially because in businesses, right? If you're buying in bulk, this will definitely happen, right? There's no way that you're going, that when, again, if they're shipping you thousands of items, right? There's no way all thousands of the items are going to arrive at your location unless they had all of it available, okay? But most cases, right, same thing to us, right? We requested to order X amount of items. They may not have it, so they have to do a backstock order for themselves, and they will ship out whatever they can, and then when the next batch of inventory arrives, they go ahead and forward it and ship it out the rest of us. So that is something that you can do, is when you receive items without a bill. Now, if they have all the items and they send it all to you at once, they're also going to attach a bill with that, okay? But usually when they have shipments sent out, the bill is with the last shipment that is sent out. It's never the first shipment because, again, what they can't bill you for what if they only shipped half the items, right? And they send you a bill for all the items, and you're sitting there waiting months and months and months for the rest of your items, right? You can't be billed for all of the items, because what if you call them and say, I want to cancel those orders? Then what's going to happen? They already sent you the bill. So most cases, when they do shipments, the last shipment is going to have the bill along with it. Okay? So I'm going to show you how to do both of them. But for now, let's focus on the first one, which is going to be receiving items without a bill. Okay? In the inventory, in the vendor center, right? You'll see that there are a little different terminologies when it comes to here. So you'll see enter bills, or you'll see enter items and enter bill, or just receive items. So make sure that you're not confused with these terminologies, because I'm going to show you what happens when I receive the items without a bill. But at the end of the day, you have all the same 6 exact ways to be able to receive the items with the bill or without a bill. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and just, right here, the easiest one is on the home page. And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's happens when I receive items without a bill. I instantly get, boom, an item receipt. Okay? And we received it the very same day. Okay? Reference number is going to be whatever the billing number that they sent you on the packaging slip. Okay? So let's see. Receive the items without a bill. Okay? So what happens here is that we end up receiving only receiving half of the wooden items, and we received all of the metal items. Okay, now this one, reference number is 4431. Now sometimes they can for instance send you 2 different shipping slips, or in other cases they can send you a bill that has both of those shipping numbers on them. But this is again, this is a reference number that you're just keeping track of yourself. Okay, use the slip number to enter in the reference number. Okay, who did you receive this from? And if I go ahead and type in Ace Supply, watch this. It's going to say, hold up, you have an open purchase order with Ace Supply. And are you sure you want to do this? And I say yes. So I click on these items, right? And I click OK. So what happens is I open up the purchase order, I transferred it over, and now it's converted and copied all the information right here in my window without me having to put anything in here. And all I do is just adjust what I received. So in this case, because I'm receiving only a portion of the items, I said that I only end up receiving 20 of those wooden frames, and I said I only received 10 of those metal frames. Okay? I only received half of my order. Now, what I can do here is, as a note, I can say received items, bill to follow. I can make a change to this and say received items, part 1 of 2. Okay? That way I know I only received half the items, or I received one part, because on this shipping slip, it should tell you how many items that they ship out and how many is there to come, right? It will always say shipment of 1 out of 2, shipment 1 out of 3, whatever it is, okay? So there you go. I updated my my memo, and I got our receive an item receipt. And then now everything looks good, so I can go ahead and click Save and Close. Okay? Now that I saved and closed, now watch what happens here. If I go ahead and go to my vendor center, click on Ace Supply, watch this. Okay? Ace Supply, I have a purchase order and I received an item receipt, which is also known as your shipping slip, your packaging slip. Okay? That's what I see here. Now, let's do an inventory stock status real quick and see how many items I actually received. Okay? So, click on inventory stock status. Boom. Now it tells me I received 10 of those metal picture frames and 20 of those wooden frames. So, see, every time I receive receive my inventory, right? It's automatically going to assume that I received inventory, so that means it's going to update my inventory as soon as I hit that save and close button. Okay? So that's very, very important because even though I didn't receive a bill yet, I still end up receiving the items. So that's the important part here is that means in the future, I will be subject to have to be due for a bill, okay, for the items I just purchased. But for now, they're not going to ship me out the bill until they ship me the rest of the items, okay? So there you go, right? I have 10 of those metal picture frames and 20 of those wooden frames, okay? So let's go through this one more time. So what happens if I do end up receiving a few days later, end up receiving the second half of my inventory, right? What do you do there? The bill also came along with it. Now, what you're going to be doing here is you are essentially going to record it as an items receipt because remember, this is part 2 out of 2 shipments, right? You have to be consistent. You can't just enter in a bill because that's not true. You didn't get a bill for just only 10 of those items. You got a bill for all of the items, right? So you want to be very consistent about this and make sure that you select, you receive the items without the bill, right? And record a second item receipt, okay? But this time, I'm going to say it was the 10th. I received it on the 10th. This time, it was billing 4332. Okay? They had a different, or 4441. Okay? And this is from Ace Supply. Now watch this. I type in Ace Supply. Boom. You have an open purchase order. I say yes. You click on this and watch this. It's automatically going to tell you, oh, you must be receiving the other half. It didn't tell me that I was receiving 40 and 20. It said that, oh, you must be receiving the other half. So every time you do a purchase order, right, and you receive something from the purchase order, it's also going to keep track of how many items you should have received. Okay? So again, right, you got to make a note here and say this is part 2 of 2, okay? And once everything looks good, right, I can go ahead and save and close, okay? And then once again, if I go view my stock status one more time, this time I'm actually going to be receiving all of my items. So there you go. I have all 20 metal picture frames and all 40 wooden picture frames. Okay, so that's the important thing about using this receive items icon function because this is your linkage. It's going to automatically convert and put the inventory in your inventory for you and calculate the stock on hand. Okay. Now, once again, you can either choose this way or you can just purchase it through online. Now, what if I didn't send a purchase order out? If you didn't send a purchase order out, then you're still going to use the same functionalities as writing a check, okay? Because in this case, right, you have to have a purchase order in order for you to receive the items. If you don't have a purchase order, unfortunately, you won't be able to do it. Okay, so if you still end up ordering something but you didn't record it, then you're just gonna go ahead and utilize the Write a Checks window to be able to update your inventory that way. Okay. So now that I end up receiving my items, right? Let's take a look at that, the vendor center one more time, okay? I have 2 item receipts, okay? One for 4441 and one for 4431, okay? Watch this. Watch what happens when I actually proceed to the next step. So after receiving the items, right, the next one is to receive items against bill, okay, or enter bill against item, excuse me, okay. If I were to click on that, right, it's going to show up this window, okay. Now, for the functionalities of this function right here, you're only limited to one area, just the home page. Because when you go ahead and go to the either the vendor's menu or the vendor center, there's a different way you're able to receive the bill from an item receipt, okay? And your book tells you how to do it, okay? And that way is simple, right? If you don't have that way to enter the bills against the inventory, right? You could double click on the item receipt. At the top of the window, you can say received bill, okay? But that's just that way. I'm going to teach you how to use the home page because we're following the flow of transactions, okay? So in this case, I'm going to click on enter bill against inventory. So it's going to tell me which vendor am I looking for. Ace Supply, okay? It's going to show me that I have 2 item receipts, okay? Now here is, I say, this is probably one of the bad parts, especially when you have shipping where you have 2 separate shippings for your inventory items. Unfortunately, you can't select multiple item receipts and put them all onto one bill, okay? It doesn't work this way. You can only select one item receipt at one time, right? See, I can't select both of them. I can't even hold shift and select both of them. I can only select one at a time and click OK. And watch this. The item receipt, boom, switches immediately into a bill. Okay? Once everything looks good, we'll save and close. Okay? Okay, you have changed this, okay? Yes. Okay. So there, now watch this. If I go into my vendor center, that item receipt converted into a bill. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned this before, right? Let's say I don't want to use the one on the home page. Unfortunately, you can't right-click it and enter in a bill against it. Okay, or here, enter a bill for received items. Okay, so you do have it right there, but you don't have it for other places. Like this one, see, you don't have this, only have bill payments. You only have bills here, credit memo. You don't have the enter bill against receiving items. So you only have it from the right click right here. But like I've mentioned this, right? You can just simply click on the item receipt, right? And click on this top of the window, received bill, boom. It will convert this into a bill. Straightforward, quick and easy. Okay? And this is what your QuickBooks book tells you, that you can do it this way as well. Okay? And once everything looks good, I save and close. You made changes to this? Yes. Okay, so now that item receipt has become a bill. Now, once again, I've mentioned this already. Every packaging slip eventually becomes a bill. So in this case, your original order of the 40 wooden picture frames and the 10 metal picture frames are no longer going to be together. It's going to be 2 separate orders, basically. Okay, so that is unfortunately one of the bad parts of that. Okay, any questions in regards using the purchase order, receiving the items without a bill, and then converting our item receipts into bills? Any questions? No questions? No questions. Yes.
Is it so? You said that every shipment became a separate bills, although it comes from the same purchase order.
Yes. Because
So
again,
when we
think of it this way as well, right? What if they were so backed up, right?
yeah
That they only sent you X amount, and because they only can send you so much, right? And you're waiting on them, it's weeks have passed by and nothing's coming forth, right? And then you tell them, you call them and say, cancel the other order, right? And just send me the bill for this one. Then that is why you can have the separate order, right? But the cool thing about it is that you're also able to select pay bills, right?
yeah
And you're also able to select multiple bills. So for instance, here you go, I have both of them from Ace Supply. I can select both of them and pay with one check.
yeah. So my question is because they're coming from the same purchase order. Don't we want to have some kind of indication on the reference number that they are coming from the same PO because you gave completely different number on that
Yes.
reference number.
Yes, because that was what was on the packaging slip. Yes, if you really wanted to,
Okay.
you could even designate your own way to be able to say this is all from one purchase order, right? I could say for my reference number, I could use PO 2022-1A.
Okay.
And then the second one that I received, I say PO 22-1B. So then that's going to indicate to me that, oh, this order that I purchased, right, is all from the same purchase order, but they end up sending me two different shipments.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
We can leave that notes for myself in the memo area.
yes, you can. Absolutely.
The number that was on the shipment notification on that reference number, so I can relate the two different number on one bill.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now let me see if I were to let's see. Sometimes some of these templates, they have a section for you to also put in a purchase order number in there as well. Okay. Usually that is when you go down to like a sales, they'll send a purchase order number on there. But yes, you can use the notes, the memos, or you could just put it right in the reference number because again, that's for you to reference it, not for the bill. But because the reason why they tell you to use the bill number is so then, that's proof of that you have this exact transaction. Okay, but yes, you can use any other means to give yourself a note to say that this is from the same purchase order. Okay. All right, no questions? No more questions? Okay. So let's go ahead and do that second example for the other one, right? For receiving the receiving the items with a bill. So again, let's do Ace Supply one more time, okay? And let's say from them I purchased the camera. I purchased the camera SR32, and let's say I purchased two of them, okay? So I go ahead and let's say I ordered it on. Okay, the 10th is fine. Save and close. So let's say I do actually end up receiving it. What happens when I click on receive with a bill? Okay, if I click on receive with the bill, boom, it's automatically gonna just show up as a bill. So that's the huge difference, right? With the bill, it's a bill. Without a bill, it's an item receipt, and that way you have to convert those item receipts into bills. Okay, so here you go, a supply, purchase order. Okay, select it. I click OK. The date I'm going to choose is the 15th of April. Okay. All right. Everything looks good. I received my 2 cameras. I can go ahead and click save and close. Right. So that's the huge difference is when you receive a bill, right, you just automatically fill in the bill, right, by selecting the purchase order. But when you receive items without the bill, it's an item receipt. So pretty straightforward in regards to understanding this section here. Now, if you received a bill, right, that means you don't necessarily have to receive or enter in a bill against items. Why? Because it's already a bill. So that's why this section here only populates very few. It's not something that you have all the time, right? So because I think they should have connected a line right here. Because you have the bill, right, that means you don't need to enter in a second bill, right? It's automatically a bill for you, okay? So that's just an example right there. So, all right. Now, again, you can do your open purchase orders list to see which purchase orders you haven't received yet, to keep checking on them. Whatever means that you want to do, again, the reports tell you a lot of information, okay? And we'll keep going back and forth to that inventory stock status because I'm going to show you what you can and cannot do in regards to that section there, especially when we're updating our inventories, okay? All right, so after we gone through that example here, what happens when you get overcharged or you have too many overshipments, okay? There are some rules and regulations in regards to that, so that's something that you should have read on your own. But when you end up receiving items that are too many, or maybe it's under or you're overcharged, there are things that you can do to be able to go through all of that and the necessary steps that you have to take in order for you to be able to either adjust your inventory accordingly or adjust your purchase orders accordingly, right? If you received an overshipment, obviously you need to pay for that overshipment if you choose to keep it, right? But if you say these are the wrong items, I have too many items, then have a choice. You either ship it back and say, sorry, I did not order this, right? Ship it back, and then they'll either correct your bill or your bill is probably correct, okay? There's many options that you can do, especially when you go through that, right? Other things I want to talk about here before we go on break is going to be talking about the costing method and what earlier I was talking about periodic and perpetual inventory. So by default, QuickBooks actually runs on a perpetual inventory, okay? Perpetual meaning it's constantly calculating, it's constantly updating, it's constantly letting you know how much inventory you have on hand at all times. It even notes you saying, hey, you're running low on your inventory. You need to order this before you won't be able to sell those items, okay? Now, with that being said, that means the QuickBooks is by default going to be using the perpetual tracking method where every time you purchase something and every time you sell something, it's going to automatically update your books, okay? Now, as we've already done this before, we've done the sales receipt, so you know how exactly what happens when I sell something to somebody, right? It's going to decrease your inventory right away, and it's going to update that right away. So if you remember, I kept running that report over and over and over, right? for every time we made a purchase, right? We saw it go from 1 or from 0 to 5, and then 0 to 20, and then 0 to 40 or 20 to 40, right? We saw it progressively change and update the inventory every single time we went through one step at a time, right? We call that perpetual inventory, right? Now, how does it cost? Now, here's something you need to know. When you sell your items, right, you have to calculate the cost of goods sold, which means when you receive the inventory items, right, and you're trying to essentially get rid of those inventory items, how much did it cost you to get rid of those items, essentially, right? How much did it cost you to sell each item? In this case, we've already figured that number out by our purchase price, right? We weren't charged any shipping, okay? But you could also insert an other charge if you'd like. So in your book, it shows you that you can tack on an additional charge to your bill. But in this case, right, when we're talking about how much it cost me to sell my items, what you're doing is, well, instead of charging your account based on the price that you sell it at, right? Because that's your selling price. That's the money that you are trying to sell it at to earn a profit. But if you're trying to get it rid off of your books, it's going to just calculate how much it cost you. So how much did it cost you to buy that inventory for you to sell that inventory? Okay? And usually that cost of inventory comes with, shipping and handling, expedited fees, right? If you needed the turnover around to be shipped to you within 24 hours, it's going to be expensive, right? Or maybe you did regular shipping, so between, 2 to 7 business days, okay? Whatever means that it cost you extra to get those items to your store is going to be included in the price of your inventory, right? Now, in our accounting class, I'm going to teach you 3 different methods that you can calculate for calculating the cost of goods sold, right? FIFO, which is first in, first out. So a great example of that would be any typical grocery store, right? Usually you have perishable goods, groceries, those kind of things, right? You buy it in bulk, in batches, right? But here's the thing, you can't sell your last batches that you just purchased because they might be too green. While your first batch that you purchased, right, they're gonna go ripe, they're gonna rot, they're gonna go bad. So the idea of FIFO is to sell your batches in order from what you purchased first. Those batches are you gonna be your first that you sell out. LIFO is last in, first out. So a great example of that is any electronic store, okay? Anything. So I usually use the Apple store, the iPhone store, right? Because yes, you're consistently selling all the other products, but the minute that the new iPhone drops, that's the first thing that you're selling. You're always selling the latest, greatest bottle first, okay? And then weighted average, or also known as average costing, is where you typically don't really care which batch came first or which batch came last, because these type of products is you're consistently selling them, and usually at this point you sell them at one consistent price. It doesn't always fluctuate. So a great example would be water bottles, right? A store will consistently buy a bunch of stock of water bottles, sell it at the same price, and no matter at any given point in time, those water bottles are going to be bought anyway because it's a natural resource that we require to have in order to live, right? So that kind of product is always going to be consistently being purchased and consistently being sold. So in this case, instead of figuring out, oh, for this month, you're going to charge them higher because I bought it at a higher price. And then this one, you're going to charge it lower because I bought it at a lower price. No. Instead, find out an even average cost between all of the batches of inventory that you bought, or we usually purchase them by slates or plates. So if that's the case, then you figure out what the average is between them. So then you can keep the price the same no matter what given point in time you're in. Okay? So that's the idea here. And in QuickBooks, unfortunately, only Pro, Premier, and Accountant can only do the average costing. If you want to go for the FIFO, the LIFO, the sum of years, not sum of years, I forgot what it's called. There's a whole bunch of different ones that you can see for the costing methods. Only corporations, or for example, QuickBooks Enterprise is able to have those features available. Because again, a small business, right? You might not need to use LIFO or FIFO, okay? But for bigger companies that sell a gazillion products, that would probably be the best bet, that they have the multiple choices of selecting which costing method works for them. Okay, so that's something I wanted to talk about here in this chapter. Okay, so other than that, what I'm going to have you guys do is let's go ahead and stop here. Okay, and let's go on our break.